You're joking. Oh, really? That's a nightmare. Oh my God, I hate Facebook. Can I just say? Yeah, that's not so good. I'm gonna start again then. So that's terrible, because my mic hadn't registered on Facebook, even though it said it had. Thanks, Ria, for telling me. Uh, I'll just go again. That we were talking about how, gosh, how dogs interact with us. So a client was saying about a reactive dog, and they're on a lead, and their dog is very reactive when they see that, and they weren't sure whether they were causing the problem or whether the dog was causing the problem. And what I was saying, what I was saying was that that the dog itself is reading us. So we're as a behaviourist, I don't when I go and see a client that has a dog that is reactive, I'm not looking at the necessarily the dog. I'm looking at the whole holistic sort of picture, the owner and the dog, because there's this kind of feedback going between the two of them, and it may well be that the owner's trauma of seeing a dog attacked or being attacked by a dog is making the dog react, and it may well be that the trauma of a dog being attacked is actually making the owner react, and therefore there's that loop going around. So what tends to happen is an owner will experience a situation where their dog has been attacked by another dog. It may have been a few years back. They carry that. We're terrible. We carry that with us then. So every time we see a dog from that point onwards and we're holding the lead, we tense up. We start to go through the scenarios of what's happening or what happened before, and we almost go back in time to that situation. And some people say, "Oh no, I made it happen." You didn't make it happen, but what you've done is you've brought that to the table. So your body chemistry, your mind, all that is reliving that situation, and your dog is very attuned to your energy, to your body language, to your chemistry, and they can pick up on all those micro changes, and they'll start to go, well, what's wrong? I was having a really good time sniffing away, and suddenly now you're looking really stressed. What's the problem? And then they start scanning the world, and then they'll pick up on something, and it may not be what you thought was a problem, but they'll pick up on it, and then they start to get tense and react. Your dog's body language changes then, and then you react to that, and then suddenly we've got this vicious cycle going on. One of you has to stop, and it won't be the dog. The dog's just going to escalate and escalate until it can get rid of whatever threat is out there, even if it has no idea what the threat is. Okay, so that's the problem. The dog will always escalate and keep escalating until you can actually get rid, or it can get rid of the threat. Now, normally that's another dog that's walking towards them. They'll bark and scream and do all stupid stuff, and then that dog will go, because they always do, don't they? The owner just walks past. So that threat then has been eliminated. It's out of sight. I can calm down now. Yeah. So what we need to do is we need to be the bit in the middle there. We need to actually say, well, I'm catching myself stressing out. Now, a really important part here is you can't lie to your dog. So as a behaviourist, I can come in, I can be super calm, but I don't tend to be. Anyone that's worked with me just knows I'm who I am. If your dog is scary, I'll ask you to put the dog on lead, because I'm not going to pretend that I can deal with your dog that's scary, because your dog will see straight through me. I might look really strong and tense, but actually inside, if I'm scared of your dog will know regardless, right? They're just too clever like that. So we need to be really authentic in the situations, but we just need to calm ourselves down. We need to take those 3 breaths. Really important, clinically proven, just taking a couple of deep breaths. Secure your dog first, so your dog's not going to do something stupid, and then just take those breaths. What that does is it lowers your sort of stress threshold, and it's quite amazing how clever we are. Most people, we can normally sort our own problems out just when we take a breath and we get out of that stress moment. What that does is it gives your dog a breather. They'll then look back and say, well, I'm barking and screaming. I look then back at my owner. My owner's nice and relaxed. So that feedback, that loop doesn't happen. Okay, that will calm your dog down quicker than you realise. Try it. It's really hard when you're in it, because you know you're reacting in that stress moment as well. But try it. Take those 3 breaths. Take yourself out of the situation if you can. Take those 3 breaths, and then just watch your dog. It's incredible. Anyone that's trained with me who's got a reactive dog would have seen that, I'm sure, that when we concentrate on ourselves, then the dog's behaviour sometimes changes. Not always. Sometimes the dog is carrying a lot of trauma, and that's harder. But really taking ownership of ourselves. It's a bit like that first aid. If anyone's done the sort of resusciani stuff, the first aid stuff, the first thing they say is look after yourself first. You can't change anybody else unless you can deal with yourself. Two stressed animals in a stressful situation isn't going to make a calm solution, is it? So control yourself, and if that means getting out of there, then get out, right? You don't have to be the person that battles through with a dog that's reactive. I've certainly just walked away or run away, in fact, When I've had a dog that is totally reactive and I just can't see the wood for the trees, it's just too much, I've just got out there. That's all your dog's trying to do anyway, isn't it? Your dog is trying to bark at the other dog to say, give me distance. Well, if that dog is coming towards them all the time and you can't deal with it, then you give the distance, you move as well. Okay. There's one other thing that I do a lot of that. Got a crazy dog in the background there. There's one other thing that I do a lot of that probably not a lot of dog trainers talk about, and I rehearse things. So I often will rehearse what I'm going to do with my dog if a situation happens. So I've got anybody who's met my dogs, I've got some really well balanced dogs, but I've got some unbalanced dogs for sure, dogs that other people couldn't cope with. But if I'm taking them out, I will sit and rehearse what I'm going to do when I'm walking down the road with them. And I'll try and preempt all the possible problems that could happen. And then I'll relive them in my mind and work out, well, what should I do? Now, I'm not saying that that's going to make it happen when I go out for a walk, or I'm going to be reacting much quicker. But at least I've kind of relived it. That when you relive things properly in your brain, it's not a lot of difference in terms of your brain, the way your brain fires, to when you're reliving it in real life. Okay, so rehearsing is a really good way of you having a toolkit really of how to deal with situations. Imagination is quite powerful, so that's definitely one thing to do. That relationship between your dog is really important. The more bond, or the more you work with your dog, the stronger that bond becomes. The more your dog's going to read you. So that authenticness is really important. Being with your dog and being worried about another dog is not a problem. Being worried together and then dealing with it is a better solution than pretending to not be worried. Okay, your dog will see through that. Okay, the first question that took ages to answer but didn't get a chance, we'll do it quite quickly, is a jumping up. So apologies for that microphone not working. Young dogs, super excited, being left by themselves and then jumping up all over people when they come in. Every dog does it. Okay, I don't think I've ever met a dog yet that hasn't done that, very rare. And we've got to think, when we try and solve that behaviour, we've got to think about why they're doing it in the first place. So often we try and change the behaviour, the actual actions that they're doing, but without understanding why they're doing it. And often the behaviour we're changing to doesn't work, doesn't stick, because it doesn't actually satisfy the dog's needs. So I always think of behaviour as there's the emotional state that the dog's in, and that's the emotional motivation for the behaviour. And then there's multiple behaviours in the middle that the dog could do. It could be jumping up, it could be barking, it could be pawing, it could be scratching, all those kind of things. And then there's a reinforcement that the owner gives or the dog gets internally. Okay, so all of those behaviours in the middle that the dog actually displays are satisfying the emotional need, that motivation. So they're all really good behaviours as far as the dog's concerned. We're the only ones that deem some of those behaviours inappropriate. Okay, to a dog, they're all good, right? Because they all work, they all get attention, or they all get a social interaction. Depending on which ones we give attention to or which ones we reinforce will dictate how strong those behaviours are, and then there'll be a kind of hierarchy of which behaviours that dog does to satisfy that need. So that then puts a pressure on us, doesn't it? Because the dog's just doing natural dog stuff, right? We're the ones that are actually selecting the behaviours that the dog is going to repeat by our reinforcement. Sit on that one for a second, because now we're not really a dog problem, are we? It's a people problem, and it's an inconsistency problem with people. So a dog that's jumping up wants social interaction. If we push them down, talk to them, tell them off, all that kind of stuff, or even just communicate with them, we've given them that interaction, therefore we've reinforced the jumping up behaviour. So the dog's not being naughty, they're only doing it because it's being reinforced. The dog doesn't repeat behaviours unless they're reinforced in some way. Okay, so we need to be really choosy about what behaviours we do. So the first thing I do when dogs jumping up is I just do nothing. I just wait and I just watch. Remember, eye contact is also, to some dogs, one of the most important in reinforcements you can give. So sometimes even looking at a dog can be quite reinforcing for a dog. So I watch the dog first of all and see, well, what behaviours does it do? So it jumps up, it jumps up. At some point it will realise that jumping up isn't getting what it wants, and it will try something else. Right? Now that trying something else might be even worse, like barking or something like that. Yeah. Again, I'll just ignore that. Then at some point it will do a behaviour that I actually like, because it's just going to go down that hierarchical list. Right? Sometime it will do a behaviour I like, and then I'm going to reinforce that behaviour. I'm going to say, oh, what a good dog. I'm going to do it calmly, otherwise it's going to jump in my face again. But that's then going to start to set some kind of reinforcement level at those dogs. Sorry, that behaviour. And by reinforcing the behaviour I want, I'm actually devaluing the other behaviour just because he's not getting anything from it. Takes a bit of time, and you want to understand it. The classic one is a dog sitting. So the dog comes in, jumps on me, and then sits down, and then we say, "Oh, good boy for sitting." Not a good thing to do, because what happens is the dogs jump, then they sit, and they link those two behaviours together. Really hard to pull those apart, actually. So what I do is I wait for those behaviours to happen, just watch, then I pick the behaviour I like. Now the dog's offered it to me, so the dog's chosen it, so they're more likely to choose it again if it's reinforced. Okay. If I start to say sit and down and all that kind of stuff, all I do is I just poison those words, because the dog's not really thinking. It's so excited it can't really access those behaviours. It may do, but it's not its choice, so it's not actually going to choose that one when it gets excited again. And if I'm not lucky, when my dog jumps up, if I say the word sit as they're jumping up, I'm possibly going to associate the word sit with jumping up, and then I'm really screwed. What I like to do is when my dog comes in, I bring them in so that they're kind of in a kind of C shape in front of me. So they're not sitting, they're in a C shape in front of me, or they're sat to the side. Sitting to the side is much better, because if they sit to the side, they can't jump up, they don't jump in your face. But when they're sat in front of you, you give them eye contact, it's one of the biggest triggers, good boy, and they just jump up again. Okay, so bring them into the side. If you bring them into the side, you can walk away. If you bring them in around in that C shape in the front of you, then you can give them that social interaction which they're begging for, they're crazy for, and then you can walk away. You can initiate it and you can stop it. Okay, so it's about really thinking the dog's not being naughty, they just want interaction. If I get them to sit by themselves, that's not going to work, because they're not getting interaction. They're not going to stay there, right? It's not going to stick. I have to give them the interaction that's going to give them that emotional, that motivation, but it's got to be more appropriate for me. Okay, so nothing to do with dog training or the dog, all to do with us and our selectivity of the behaviours we want. That being said, outside we could train the sit, the down, and all those kind of things outside of the excitement, so that they at least have an option or an opportunity to connect into that. The other thing that the young lady said there was that she opens the dogs in the crate, she opens the crate, and the dogs just come bawling out, even though she tries to calm them when they're in there. You've got to think about this. Dogs are in a crate for a long time. I don't know how long they're in there for, but if they're in there for a while, they're going to get really sort of pent up. That energy is going to start to build and build and build. So it's not surprising that when you open the crate, they just come bawling out, right? So you're not going to stop that. That's just not going to happen. And you can get as angry or as frustrated as you like. It's not going to change anything. Probably going to make it worse. So what we tend to do, if we have a dog that's had to be crated or had to be isolated for a while, when we let them out, we don't just let them out. We actually do something with them. So when they come out of the crate, they come into, we bring out a tuggy, or we give them something like a snuffle mat, which is going to full of food, so it actually redirects that excitement into something like sniffing, or into something like aggression, reacting with the tuggy toy and prey drive. Again, depends on the dog. What that does, it gives that initial energy an outlet. Not me, right? Something more appropriate. Then I'm likely to be able to ask for a sit and get those behaviours appropriately. There was also a comment about kids and dogs with kids and being excited with kids and jumping on them. Again, nothing to do with the dog. Normal behaviours. It's a management issue, always with kids. When you've got younger kids particularly, younger kids and puppies and younger kids and dogs don't really mix unless they're watched. Okay, and more kids get bitten by their own dogs in their own house. So really the onus is on the owner to manage the dog. If a dog's allowed to jump all over the kids, then that behaviour is going to be practiced. Kids are always going to reinforce the bad behaviours. That's just the way they are. They get excited. They want to be part of it. In fact, sometimes they do it on purpose just to make the dog do the wrong things. But kids will always do something to the dog. Therefore, they're going to give, if it's a social interaction the dog's looking for, they're always going to reinforce that behaviour. Okay, so don't rely on your kids to train your dogs. If you've got kids in the family and the dog's coming out the crate, put them on a lead straight away, and then teach them what you want them to do. Dogs are not stupid, they're incredibly clever. They will do anything you ask them to do as long as the reward or the reinforcement reinforces the behaviour that they want. Okay, simple as that. Also, demand barking, almost very similar to what we're talking about here. So just make sure, so I'm just going to read all of that comment there to make sure I've got it all. It's quite deeply. Yeah, I wish people were a bit more sensitive about dogs barking. So barking is a communication, right? So we're talking, or I'm talking here now, and I'm saying lots of things. Dogs just use their voice in exactly the same way as we do. So every time a dog says barks, they're saying something. We need to determine what it is. We call it becoming bilingual, and it's about understanding the language of the dog and the language of the barks. And dogs have thousands of different barks, different pitches, different intonations. So each one is something different. A demand bark tends to be very high pitched, okay, and it's almost a what it is. It's a frustration bark. I want this. You normally give it to me, and you're not now. So I'm going to bark and bark and bark until you give it to me. I've got a dog in here, right, Pixie, my little black border collie shepherd dog. She's an attention-seeking dog barker, so she will be out in the kennel and she wants to be inside. She'll just yip 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 all the time. The more attention you give her, the more she's going to do that. If we bring her in when she's barking, then that's reinforced the behaviour because she's got what she's wanted every time. It's really annoying. It's really annoying if you've got a dog like that. It's really annoying for everyone else. But again, understand what they want. If we don't give it to them, they get more frustrated. So with Pixie, if I don't bring her in, she'll get more frustrated. But if I do bring her in, I potentially reinforce the barking, gets what she wants. So what I have to do is I have to decide that if she's barking because she wants to come inside, what does she want? Again, we're back to the emotional, that motivation. She wants an interaction. So what we tend to do is I tend to go out to her and I'll interact with all the dogs. So rather than her come in and be special and have that, I'm coming in the house, I'll go out to her. So she kind of still gets the interaction, but it's a better interaction for me than her coming in the house. And we're still in that process at the moment. She's got a bit old, she's nearly 10 now, and she's starting to want to be in the house a lot more. Okay, so even a dog that's well trained can become an attention-seeking barker later on in life. You said you've got a 1-year-old, you've got puberty going on there as well, so that's that frustration, very quickly frustrated. And again, ignoring the dog is right. So ignoring all that attention-seeking barking is the right thing. But the bit that's always missing with most people is what is actually happening. Why are they doing it? Because if they don't do something that satisfies the need that they've got, then all we're going to do is get more frustrated, and then the barking's going to get worse. Okay. So he's a retriever. This is Stacy. So he's a retriever. So basically, at the end of the day, retrievers are all about attention. They're all about sociable interaction. So he wants some kind of social interaction, right? Simple as that. And he'll keep barking until you tell him to shut up, because that's a social interaction as far as he's concerned. He doesn't know what the words mean. It just means, oh, mummy's talking to me. How lovely, yeah? So think about what kind of behaviours that you should be giving him that are more appropriate to satisfy that emotion, that sociable need. And then he's more likely to want to get those behaviours than barking for other things, okay? I think it's probably one of the worst behaviours, that attention-seeking barking. It really is. And as soon as when we've got kids around and people complaining, then it becomes a real problem, because then there's a time limit to that behavioural change. You'll probably find if you really listen, there'll be certain times when he does it, more so than others. So maybe you can preempt those and step in and do something with him before that. General training anyway, on a regular basis, always stops attention-seeking barking, because they're getting attention anyway. They don't have to ask for it, they're always getting it. I hope that helps a little bit. Yeah. Complaining from neighbours, it's a really hard one, because we're such an intolerant society nowadays. Yeah, it's a really hard one. Maybe doggy daycares during the day, just to limit the behaviour or the problems. No, definitely not. So you try not to reinforce the behaviour. What you can do is you could possibly redirect it into something else, and then reinforce that. Again, he just wants attention. That's what you got to remember. He just wants attention, right? He just needs to find another way to get it, or another way to ask for it. So what have we done before? One of the things that we have done, Tizzy, one of our border collies, he's a little bit of a howler and he wants attention. He barks occasionally, not so bad now. But we always tell him to go get his Kong. So we trained him to go and grab a Kong and run around with a Kong in his mouth. That works for two reasons. He gets something, but also he can't bark with a Kong in his mouth, so it always works. And with a retriever, that would be a real easy one to give him something in his mouth, go and get his toy. So I might be trying to teach him to go and redirect his toy to his toy. And then he's got something in his mouth. That might be a good thing. Feel free, if you want to, we do like a free call that you can just give me a shout, and if you need any help now, I can book consultations and that kind of stuff. Or on that note, we do have an online platform that I'm releasing at the moment, so there's lots of free stuff on there. If you go onto the website, you can get a free account there and check out. I think we've got muzzle training, puppies and rescue dogs, and there's a couple of different options on there that are going to get more and more and more as we go on. Probably been on here way too long now then. Apologies for that first 15 minutes of watching me just wave around like a mute. I've learned some valuable lessons about Facebook. Also, you may notice I've got no front tooth. I had to have it removed. I don't normally walk around with no front tooth. I do have a false one, but I can't speak properly, so it's a bit strange today. That's going to be sorted out soon, hopefully. Feel free to put any feedback about the advice in the Facebook post here, just to help other people when they come in and have a little listen. This will be up on YouTube and the podcast as well. So, and I'll be trying to do this every Friday or every other Friday at least. So, yeah, feel free to come and join us again. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate some people turning up, and yeah, see you again soon.